Anyone ever find that thing that no one wants to talk about and is secretly holding the company together with shoestring, bubblegum, and paper clips? It's usually found at 4:45 on a Friday before a major holiday, and after it goes down, a beet-red senior executive is screaming to the heavens that there's going to be a second off-battle Stalingrad. Okay. If we don't get this previously unknown and undocumented thing back online. You email the alleged domain expert only to see they are out of office till 2099. So you email the manager only to get a bounce-back message that they haven't worked here since Barack's first term. I recently found one of those things. It all started with an acquisition of another company, we'll call them the Insane Asylum, that basically makes software for our industry. I'm going to vaguely say my company is in the manufacturer world, and buying the software gave us a competitive advantage. Of course, no senior executive thinks about the difficulties the IT teams are now faced with in a merger. The first sign of something being amiss is when me and my co-workers were provisioning laptops and computers for employees from the Insane Asylum, and we asked for requirements for each department. Everything seems to be going fine until I see the request from the Insane Asylum's development team. They wanted 40 laptops, each with 4 terabytes of storage, which is a hell of a lot for a work computer and could send them way over budget. I couldn't understand why they needed that much local storage, so I called up the head of that department for an explanation, and his team danced around why they needed that much storage. I mean, we pay for cloud services for a reason. Basically, we walked away with the team telling us they would try to make it work with less storage, but never elaborated on why they requested it in the first place. I walked away from that phone call confused, and my co-worker, who is Jamaican, not relevant except that he uses local colloquialisms that wind up being very funny later in the story, brought up that their behaviour seemed bizarre. Like, why on earth would they plead the fifth when we pressed them for questions? We're honestly just looking to help. But work was piling up, and even though we hadn't been involved in the acquisition, they had passed ordered before we purchased them, so I let it go. Flash forward 3 months to present. 4 o'clock on Friday, I'm wrapping up some day-to-day security stuff and getting ready for an Amazon sales meeting. I make it a point to freeze changes and projects in December. Everyone's on vacation, and I don't want a major outage during the holidays. So I'm all prepared for a lull period until January 3rd. I was starting to get really annoyed with the Insane Asylum employees because they kept scheduling changes but always would pencil out 2 to 3 days of time to get everything done. Even basic maintenance, without explaining why it was taking so long. I was beginning to think they had snails or something typing at the computers. I was catastrophically wrong. My young Jamaican colleague was monitoring my ticket queue while I was in the sales meeting. He got an escalation request from help desk. Its contents were literally, "Something very weird is going on with the new dev team. Their app is suffering intermittent outages, slow responses, and network monitoring says they are seeing that team trying to move gigabytes of data on the network. Call them as soon as possible." My poor colleague calls the team and things really start to unravel. They tell him many of the Insane Asylum's old IT folks were let go during the acquisition, including the guy who was responsible for increasing their storage when their app was close to hitting space capacity. They had assumed we had been doing it in his place. No problem. He could request a new virtual server or additional space in Amazon to mitigate the problem right now, and we could come up with a long-term plan once I got back to my desk. The person he's talking to immediately cuts him off and says that isn't necessary. They just need him to call Dropbox support. He's now very confused and asks, Why on earth are they sending or storing information in Dropbox? That's a huge breach. He asks what information the app/website is pulling from the Dropbox, and they drop a bombshell. They tell him the entire database is in Dropbox.
Huh?
At this point, I'm told he began to look like he just stumbled out of the trenches in 1917. He asked them to elaborate, because what they described didn't sound possible. It was. But it wasn't just the database. It was the entire app and website.
Bruh.
The app was actually just a server instance in Heroku that was spun up whenever there was an update and would make crazy API calls to the Dropbox account,
Bruh.
read information from hard-coded database files.
Bruh.
He immediately called Dropbox support to figure out what in God's name was going on, and to his horror, after several escalations, gained access to the account and found that the account had 497 terabytes of 500 terabytes of space used up, and the team was on the verge of running out. This explained why they needed such large hard drives, and why the changes were taking so long. It would take days to upload and download so much data to Dropbox, plus have all the developers resync their local Dropbox instances with the correct latest versions. This single Dropbox account was also their version control. My colleague, perhaps prophesying that a tsunami of shit was about to be unleashed, started screaming, "The blood of Jesus! The blood of Jesus! Lord, no! The blood of Jesus!" which might be the Caribbean equivalent of holy fucking shit. Unfortunately, the CISO happened to be in the room and was concerned why one of her employees was having a breakdown, or if she should start preparing for the second coming. Usually I look to put together bullet points and work actions before contacting the CISO in an emergency, because she often doesn't see the nuances of day-to-day operations. When this was all explained to her from street level, her head exploded. Meanwhile, I'm falling asleep in a meeting completely ignorant of the impending hurricane of shit I'm about to walk into, until an analyst stormed into the meeting like Pheidippides right before he collapsed after the Battle of Marathon. He told us there was a potential privacy breach the CISO was already aware of, without being briefed, and on top of everything else, since the technical leads were in this doomed sales meeting, all the zoo animals were let loose in the office. My blood runs cold and we all rush downstairs to a 3-ring political circus. Our CISO is trying to justify to the CFO and the insane asylum employees that this is unacceptable even if we get this back online and increase the Dropbox storage. This is a ticking time bomb and we need to start an emergency investigation to see if anyone, former employee or hacker, has accessed this Dropbox account. There is zero monitoring in place, and they were sharing access willy-nilly with the whole team. Every team member had read-write access. Weary of losing this political battle and forcing her team to support this beast, she went with the nuclear option and emailed the General Counsel explaining the risks. This is when shit really started to roll, because she interrupted the Lovecraftian cosmic horror, otherwise known as General Counsel's, vacation to lob this turd grenade. I spent all night coming up for a solution to migrate all this information and try to confirm that there hasn't been a data breach yet. I would have been working the following morning as well, but I was in so much pain when I woke up, on top of having anxiety nightmares the whole night. I went to the doctor and found out I have a stomach ulcer. I can't be certain, but I'm pretty sure this whole incident, plus intervention from IT demons, pushed my body over the edge. The solution is yet to be determined, and frankly it's a miracle I haven't shot a developer yet. There's a lot of lessons to unpack here, but to this day it blows my mind what glue-stick and thumbtack solutions are in production. I'm concerned there are tons of companies out there where the standard operating procedure is to have stuff collecting electricity without anyone knowing what it is or how it works. P.S. My son said I should write that I'm hoping my fellow IT veterans pour one out for me this weekend.
Baba Bowie.